in the NBA, Celtics got exposed after an awesome comeback. I think that's safe to say, Jack. I want to hear your thoughts on the series. I thought the Heat, tough, gritty, resilient. I mean, a lot of undrafted players, not a lot of stars, but well coached from top to bottom, led by Jimmy Buckets. And I think they exposed the Celtics team with younger stars and a team that looks like a kind of a front-running situation. So what are your thoughts, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an interesting series, to say the least. It was kind of funny. At the same time, it was a competitive series. At the same time, it wasn't. I mean, half the games were blowouts. I mean, the series itself was competitive, but the games weren't competitive. Except
Gotta love the
outside Game
NBA.
6.
Gotta love the NBA.
Game 6 was phenomenal between Jimmy Butler's free throws and then the tip in at the end. It was a great game. It was unfortunate the way Game 7 sort of went. I mean, everybody kind of knew the second that Tatum rolled his foot that it wasn't going to be the same. Jaylen Brown sort of struggled. Anyways, yeah. So again, it was a really okay series at best, game to game, but overall, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a much better story. I mean, just the memes of both Celtics teams or both Boston teams, despite being arguably the best teams in each of their leagues, failing to make the championship either. Granted, the Bruins was a lot worse than the Celtics situation. It was, I mean, this finals is going to be pretty cool. I mean, Jokic, I mean, the Nuggets were the one seed. It's not really a shock there. I think one guy from ESPN picked the Nuggets or the Heat in the finals, and he picked them to play against each other. It was like one of 18 people, and he was getting mocked for it. Now it's the complete accurate finals. So seeing Butler and his mindset's going to be really exciting. Jokic and the Nuggets play style, it'll be fun. It'll definitely be a lot more of an entertaining series, I think, than the Boston Celtics Miami Heat series was.
Who do you want to win that series, Jack?
I think you got to go root for the story there. You got to go Miami. I mean, Jimmy Butler, the 8th seed, they were 3 points from elimination in a play-in game, and then they knock off the number 1 seed in Milwaukee. They just walk in the finals. They almost walked into the finals, then fought back the greatest comeback arguably in league history until they shut them down in Game 7. I mean, there's no better story than that. I mean, it cannot be beat.
I'm going to root for your Denver Nuggets because Colin Gillespie. Why not? He is on the bench for them right now, recovering from a broken ankle or leg, I believe. Colin Gillespie, Archbishop Wood alumni. He was our water boy at Archbishop Wood when I played football there. Turned out to be one of the best players in Villanova basketball history, and won national title, maybe 2-1, maybe been a freshman for one of their older ones. Great kid, great family, great story, and he'll be playing for the Nuggets next year. He's doing great. So I'll be rooting for the Nuggets, but I can appreciate Miami too. I think how can you not root for Eric Spoelstra if you're a sports fan? And this guy started as the video guy for the Miami Heat, and now he's a basketball Hall of Famer. I mean, the guy's a stud. Pat Riley, stud. Jimmy Buckets. I mean, people in Philly are upset about that one. So, lots to unpack there. And then, Jack, I want to hear your opinion. Nick Nurse. Sixers hire Nick Nurse. I like the move. I think there's teams were tough to play against. I think the teams played hard. Every time we watched the Raptors play, last when I was really into the Sixers, I thought they were like kind of a pain in the ass to play against. And they didn't have like the best players in the world. They had like solid players, but they just were a pain in the ass to play against. So I think that's what the Sixers need. Now, I don't think James Harden is a pain in the ass to play against, and that's why I think they need to move on from him and then Joe try to find some help. But I digress. I think it's a match for the Sixers in the city.
Sounds like my dogs disagree with you on that one. But no, I mean, Nurse was, in my opinion, the best hire, even when he looked at everybody that was available from the start of the coaching process. Obviously, he won the finals with Toronto in 2019. He is pretty much the exact opposite of Doc Rivers from a coaching perspective, which is, granted, if you're some Philly fans, it's exactly what you wanted. He is a really great X's and O's guy. He's drawn up incredible plays. I don't know if you remember back, I think it was the bubble, actually. The Raptors were playing the Celtics. OG Anunoby had an incredible game-winning three-pointer that Nurse drew up. I mean, he is a hard ass of a coach. He's not a player's coach like Doc was. He's not going to suck up to the guys. And Embiid and Nurse have a very long history of really not being positive towards each other. I don't think that's going to be big of a deal. Of course, they got Embiid to sign off on it before they actually hired Nurse. I would imagine there's talks that he said he was in the process and they had a good conversation. But he is really what you want. I mean, and if you have a coach who's really trying to push your best player to do more and play harder and the best player gets upset, then you're on the side of the coach of that one. You're not going to side the player on that. He is very similar, not as bad as Tom Thibodeau. He plays his players a lot more per game, but he will, in exchange, he gives them days off. So Embiid won't play 30 minutes a night. He will play 38 minutes 5 out of 7 nights. So it's kind of the same trade-off. It's just Embiid's probably going to have a higher stat line. He might not win an award, though. None of this really matters. It really matters in the playoffs. Again, Nick Nurse, I mean, a lot of the hate against Ben Simmons kind of first started against the Toronto Raptors. When the Raptors kind of had him sitting on the baseline doing nothing, Nick Nurse, that was the coach on the sideline for Toronto that did that. So I'm really excited. I think the next really important step is what happens with Harden, who they would bring in exchange for him, sort of that whole situation. I don't know what will happen, but the Sixers outbid the Suns to make sure they landed Nick Nurse. So clearly they want to remain competitive, obviously. So I would imagine Harden could still be in a contention there.
Interesting. I saw Stephen A. Smith saying that Boston should go after Damian Lillard and not sign Brown. What are your thoughts on that? Dame to Boston, and could Philly try to go after him?
I don't think Damian Lillard's going to leave. Lillard's a culture guy. I think he's kind of accepted at this point that he is not going to really be a championship contender guy, especially since he locked in that contract. He's making $50+ million a year. It doesn't really make sense. For Portland, it absolutely does make sense. They have the number 3 overall pick. They have Anthony Simon, Shady and Sharp. They have a lot of good young pieces. And it would make the absolute most sense to trade Damian Lillard to gather more young assets, very similar to Houston and James Harden in a sense. I mean, Houston, excuse me, had young guys. They flipped out Harden. They got all those picks from the Nets, and now they're reeling in the dough. I mean, I don't anticipate that Damian Lillard's on another team next season, especially if that number 3 pick. They're going to look in the opposite direction. They're going to try to flip it. I don't know what that could gain them. Boston's going to be trying to keep Jaylen Brown. Doesn't really make sense for them to be moving him for a draft pick. And no other stars really seem to be on the market right now. It's kind of just around the edge, 3rd, 4 guys at best. And that number 3 pick being a Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson player, that's the number 1 overall pick in any other draft. So you need to take that pick and you need to just sit on it. And if needed, you flip it. Very similar to how the Suns flipped Mikal Bridges and that whole package for Kevin Durant. That's what you do. You don't flip the pick right away.